Chapter 1. He knows where he belongs. To the world, Kale Veyron was lethal. A soldier forged by war, feared for his precision and merciless calm. Men stepped aside when he passed. Enemies learned his name too late. But at home, he was unbearable. The door hadn't even closed when his arms were already around my waist. No hesitation. No permission asked. He pressed his weight against my back like he owned the space, like he knew I wouldn't push him away. "You're late," I said. "You waited," he replied easily, chin resting on my shoulder. He knew. That was the problem. He always knew I loved him. His lips brushed my neck, slow, deliberate. Not a kiss yet. Just enough to make a point. "You're taking advantage again," I warned. He smiled against my skin. "You let me." I turned, barely managing to face him before he leaned down and kissed me properly. No softness, no shyness, just familiar, confident, claiming. The kind of kiss stolen because he could, because he knew I wouldn't stop him. I pushed his chest lightly. "Greedy?" "And?" he asked, already leaning in again. Clingy didn't mean weak. Clingy meant attached. He followed me through the house like a shadow that refused to let go, arms around my waist while I poured water, fingers hooking into my belt when I passed him, stealing quick kisses whenever I got distracted. "You're impossible," I muttered. "You married me," he said smugly, kissing the corner of my mouth. "Your fault." To others, he was disciplined. Controlled. Untouchable. With me, he had no shame. I sat on the couch. He immediately dropped beside me, spreading his legs, pulling me between them without asking. His chin rested on my shoulder again, arms locked around me like I might disappear if he loosened his grip. "You're home," I said. "I am," he answered. "So stop pretending you don't like this." I clicked my tongue. "You're annoying." He laughed softly and kissed my cheek. Then my jaw. Then my lips, slow, unhurried, confident. A man who knew exactly how much affection he was allowed to steal. When I didn't kiss back right away, he didn't stop. He just stayed there, lips brushing mine again and again, patient and persistent, until I sighed and gave in. He smiled against my mouth. There it is. I hate that smile. Later, when night settled and silence wrapped the house, he lay with his head on my chest, fingers lazily tracing my arm. "You love me," he said casually, eyes closed. I didn't answer. He hummed, satisfied anyway, pressing a final kiss just below my collarbone. He didn't need the words. He already had everything else. Chapter 2. He never lets me forget. Morning proved one thing very clearly. He had no intention of giving me space. I woke up with his arm heavy around my waist, his leg hooked over mine like a trap. Not protective. Not unconscious. Intentional. "You're awake," I said. "I've been awake," he replied, voice calm, smug even. I tried to move. His grip tightened immediately. "Don't," he murmured, lips brushing my shoulder. "You're warm. You're clingy. You love it." I scoffed, but didn't deny it. He shifted closer, chest pressed to my back, breath steady against my neck. His hand slid from my waist to my stomach, fingers spreading possessively like he was reminding himself I was still there. "You're taking advantage," I warned. "Always," he said without apology. He kissed the side of my neck, slow, unhurried, lingering just long enough to make my thoughts blur. Not asking. Never asking. Just taking what he knew I'd allow. Later, while I moved around the house, he followed, close enough to touch, always touching. A hand on my lower back. Fingers catching my wrist when I passed. His presence constant, grounding, impossible to ignore. I stopped suddenly. He crashed gently into me, arms immediately circling my waist. "You didn't have to grab me," I said. "Yes, I did," he replied, already leaning down. This time, the kiss was brief, stolen in the middle of the hallway. Quick. Familiar. Almost lazy. I sighed. At least pretend you're not addicted. I am addicted, he said plainly. To you. That caught me off guard. I narrowed my eyes. Careful. He chuckled, resting his forehead against mine. You won't run. He was right. That confidence, the way he knew exactly where he stood, was dangerous in its own way. Before leaving, he pinned me gently against the door, one hand braced beside my head. His eyes searched my face, not for permission, but for reaction. I'll be back tonight, he said. You always are. He kissed me then, slow, deliberate, unhurried. The kind of kiss meant to linger long after he left. When he pulled away, he brushed his thumb over my lip like he was memorizing the feeling. I'll behave, he added. I snorted. Liar. He grinned and stole one last kiss before stepping away. The door closed. The house felt quieter immediately. And annoyingly, I missed him already. Chapter 3, The One No One Touches. Outside the house, Cale Veyron was not clingy. He was distant. Men moved out of his way without being told. Conversations died the moment he entered a room. His presence wasn't loud, it was heavy, pressing down until everyone remembered exactly where they stood. Untouchable. A soldier stood too close while reporting. Cale's eyes flicked to him once. Just once. The man stepped back immediately. No anger. No raised voice. Control sharpened to a blade. I watched from across the room, arms crossed, pretending not to notice how everyone avoided him. How no one dared meet his gaze for longer than necessary. Someone whispered his name. Not admiration. Warning. He finished his work efficiently, movements precise, expression unreadable. When it was over, he turned and walked straight toward me. The room held its breath. Because this was the part no one understood. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. His voice, when he spoke, was low and even. You're staring, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You're scary today. Good. I smirked. Trying to impress me. Something dark flickered in his eyes. Before anyone could process what was happening, his hand came to my waist, firm, unmistakable. Not aggressive. Not gentle. Claiming. The entire room froze. He leaned down and pressed a brief kiss to my lips. Not soft. Not teasing. Controlled. Deliberate. A statement. When he pulled back, his thumb lingered for half a second at my side, long enough to be noticed, short enough to be untouchable. No one spoke. No one moved. I leaned in slightly and murmured, careful. They are watching. His lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. Let them. To the world, he returned to ice immediately, hands back at his sides, face blank, presence lethal. The man who killed without hesitation. The one no one dared approach. But as we walked away together, his fingers brushed mine. Once. Hidden. Familiar. A stolen moment meant only for me. Dangerous. Untouchable. And still, completely mine. Chapter 4, The Scar He Never Talks About. Cale never spoke about the past. Not in stories. Not in anger. Not even in the dark. The past lived in the way his jaw tightened at sudden noises, in the way his eyes scanned exits without thinking, in the nights he stayed awake even when his body was exhausted. That evening, the rain was heavy. He came home quieter than usual. No teasing. No immediate touch. That alone told me something was wrong. I didn't ask. I waited. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. The dangerous soldier was still there, but brittle, like glass stretched too thin. I moved closer. He didn't pull me into his arms like usual. That scared me more than his silence. They died today, he said suddenly. I froze. Who? My unit, he answered flatly. The old one. I sat beside him. Our shoulders touched. They trusted me, he continued. And I wasn't there. His voice didn't shake. His hands did. This was the part no one ever saw. The untouchable man, carrying ghosts. You survived, I said softly. His lips pressed into a thin line. I always do. I turned toward him. Look at me. Slowly, he did. For the first time since I'd known him, his eyes weren't sharp. They were tired. Haunted. You're not allowed to disappear, I said firmly. Something broke then. He reached for me, not boldly, not possessively, but like a man afraid I might slip through his fingers. His forehead pressed against my shoulder, breath uneven. I don't know how to be anything else, he murmured. I only know how to fight. I lifted his chin and kissed him. Not teasing. Not playful. Steady. Certain. Grounding. He inhaled sharply, hands gripping my clothes like anchors. When the kiss ended, he stayed close, forehead resting against mine. I'm still here, I said. And so are you. He nodded once. Then, because this was Cale, he leaned in and kissed me again. Slower this time. Deeper. Not desperate, but claiming comfort instead of control. When he pulled back, his voice was low. Don't leave. I smirked, even as my heart clenched. You're clingy. Yes, he agreed easily, arms wrapping around me. Only with you. That night, he slept with his face pressed into my neck, breath steady, body heavy with trust. The dangerous soldier rested. And I guarded him from his past. Chapter 5, Husbands Without a Ceremony. We never planned it. There was no ring, no promise spoken out loud, no day marked as the beginning. It just happened. Somewhere between shared nights and silent understanding, we crossed a line neither of us wanted to step back from. Morning light crept through the curtains. Cale was already awake. I knew because his arm tightened the moment I shifted, pulling me closer like instinct, like habit. His chin rested on my shoulder, breath slow and warm. You're thinking, he said. You're clinging, I replied. Same thing. I sighed but didn't move away. His hand slid lazily over my waist, familiar, claiming space he knew was his. People would be surprised, I said quietly. If they saw you like this. They don't get to, he answered. You do. He pressed a kiss just below my ear, not rushed, not teasing. Domestic. Comfortable. The kind of kiss that didn't ask for permission because it didn't need to. I turned slightly. We're not normal, are we? Cale hummed, amused. Normal men don't survive what I have. That's not what I meant. His eyes met mine then, steady, certain. We wake up together. We sleep together. We fight, we come back. You let me touch you like this. His thumb brushed my jaw. What else do you call it? I didn't answer. He leaned in and kissed me again, slow, unhurried, lips fitting like they always had. Not passion. Not desperation. Belonging. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. We're husbands, he said simply. Without the noise. I scoffed softly. You didn't even ask. He smirked. You didn't say no. Later, while I made coffee, he leaned against the counter, arms around my waist from behind, chin on my shoulder again. Always touching. Always there. You're attached, I said. Yes, he replied easily. And you're mine. I elbowed him lightly. Careful. He kissed the corner of my mouth. I am. And that was the truth. He was careful with the world. Careful with violence. Careful with control. With me? He didn't bother. That afternoon, as we sat side by side in silence, his fingers slipped into mine, casual, confident, undeniable. No ceremony. No witnesses. Just two men who had already chosen each other. Chapter 6, He Takes What I Give. Cale learned my weaknesses too well. That was the problem. He knew exactly when I was pretending not to notice him, when my attention was on something else, when my guard was down. That was when he struck. Quietly. Confidently. I was reading when his shadow fell over me. "You're hovering," I said. "You didn't tell me to stop." Before I could look up, his hands were on either side of the chair, trapping me in place. He leaned down, stealing a kiss from the corner of my mouth, quick, smug, practiced. "Cale," I warned. He kissed me again. This time slower. "You're encouraging me," he murmured. "I'm doing no such thing." He smiled like a man who already knew the outcome. He shifted, sitting on the arm of the chair, close enough that our legs touched. His fingers traced lazy circles on my wrist, grounding, familiar. Possessive without force. "You know," he said casually, "you never stop me." "That's because you don't listen." "I listen," he corrected. "I just don't obey." I finally looked at him then. His eyes were calm, certain, entirely focused on me. No battlefield sharpness. No distance. Only intent. "You're dangerous," I said. "Only if you let me be." He leaned in and kissed me again, this one lingering, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "You love me," he said, not asking. I rolled my eyes. "You're insufferable." "And yet," he replied, kissing my cheek, then my jaw, then my lips again, "you're still here." Later, when we went out, the contrast was sharp. Outside, Cale was all control. Distance. Untouchable. But the moment we were alone, even for a second, his hand found mine. His thumb brushed my knuckles. A quiet reminder. At home again, he pushed me gently against the door and kissed me like he'd been holding back all day. Not rough. Just full. Complete. When we finally pulled apart, I breathed, "You're taking advantage." He rested his forehead against mine, smiling. "You're letting me." And he was right. That night, as he lay half on top of me, arm heavy around my waist, he pressed a soft kiss to my temple, unusual, almost tender. "You're mine," he said quietly. I didn't argue. I just reached up and pulled him closer. Chapter 7, The Line No One Crosses. Cale rarely showed jealousy. Not because he didn't feel it, but because he didn't need to. People usually knew better. We were out in public, surrounded by noise and conversation. Cale stood beside me, calm, unreadable, the same untouchable presence the world feared. His hands were in his pockets. His posture relaxed. Controlled. Then someone spoke to me. Too close. Too familiar. I answered politely, nothing more. But I felt it immediately, the subtle shift beside me. Cale didn't move, didn't interrupt, didn't even look angry. But his body angled closer. A silent warning. The other man laughed, saying something unnecessary, leaning in just a little more than he should have. That was when Cale finally looked at him. Not sharply. Not aggressively. Just enough. The man faltered mid-sentence. Cale's voice was calm when he spoke. "You're standing too close." The room seemed to quiet. Sorry, the man muttered, stepping back. Cale didn't pursue it. Didn't escalate. He simply turned back to me like nothing had happened. "You okay?" he asked softly. I raised an eyebrow. "Jealous?" He leaned closer, lips brushing my ear. "Possessive." Before I could reply, his hand settled at my lower back, firm, unmistakable. Not for comfort. For clarity. Then, without hesitation, he leaned down and kissed me. Not rushed. Not heated. Deliberate. A claim made in plain sight. When he pulled back, his expression was neutral again, as if he hadn't just rewritten the room's understanding of boundaries. "You didn't have to do that," I murmured. "I wanted to," he replied. And they needed to see it. Later, when we were finally alone, I turned to him. You enjoy that too much. He shrugged slightly. I enjoy you. He backed me gently against the wall, caging me in without pressure, eyes dark but steady. I don't get jealous easily, he said. But I don't share. I smirked. You never do. He kissed me again, slower this time, private, familiar. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. You're safe, he murmured. With me. I exhaled, fingers gripping his jacket. I know. And that was the truth. The world could test him. Men could make mistakes. But Cale never hesitated when it came to me. Chapter 8, where it first began. Their love didn't start with desire. It started with familiarity. Back then, Cale wasn't feared yet. He was just sharp-eyed, quiet, always present. Always there when I needed someone and never asking why. Best friends, that's what we were supposed to be. We trained together. Ate together. Sat in silence without it feeling awkward. He learned my habits without being told. I learned his moods without asking. You don't talk much, I once said, lying beside him under an open sky. You talk enough for both of us, he replied. I laughed. He watched me like he'd just discovered something dangerous. The first time I realized something had changed, it was small. I was hurt, nothing serious, just a scrape. He knelt in front of me, hands steady as always, cleaning the wound with careful precision. You don't have to be so gentle, I teased. I do, he said quietly. That was new. His fingers lingered a second too long. His eyes stayed on my face instead of the injury. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched. You're staring, I said, repeating words that would later become familiar. So are you, he replied. I leaned in without thinking. It wasn't planned. It wasn't brave. It was instinct. Our lips brushed, barely a kiss, more like a question. We froze immediately, eyes wide, breath caught between us. He started. I kissed him again. This time, real. Still soft. Still unsure. But unmistakable. When we pulled apart, neither of us smiled. This wasn't playful. This was serious. We shouldn't, he said. I know, I replied. We didn't stop. From then on, it was stolen moments. Sitting too close. Hands brushing, accidentally. Lingering looks that said more than words. At night, he'd lie awake beside me, close but never crossing a line unless I did first. You could tell me to stop, he said once. I didn't. That was when he started clinging, slowly, naturally. Like he was learning how to stay. Love didn't explode into existence. It settled. Quiet. Deep. Unavoidable. By the time we realized what we were, it was already too late to pretend we were anything else. And neither of us wanted to go back. Chapter 9, the war that tried to take him. War came without warning. It always did. The order arrived at dawn. Cale read it once, folded the paper, and slid it into his pocket like it meant nothing. But I saw the change, the way his jaw set, the way his fingers curled slowly, deliberately. How long? I asked. Long enough, he replied. He didn't say goodbye immediately. He followed me through the house instead, closer than usual, touching more than usual, hand on my back, fingers lacing with mine whenever he could. Clingy. Like he was memorizing me. At the door, he finally stopped. His hands came up to my face, steady but warm. You'll come back, I said. I always do. That's not an answer. His eyes softened. I'll come back to you. That was better. I pulled him down and kissed him, harder than usual, longer, like I could seal the promise into his skin. He kissed me back just as fiercely, hands gripping my coat like letting go would break something. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. If I don't, he said quietly, remember that I loved you first. I grabbed his collar. Don't. He smiled faintly. I'll remember your face instead. The door closed behind him. The house felt wrong without his weight, without his presence pressing in from every corner. Nights were the worst. I slept on his side of the bed without thinking, and reaching out for someone who wasn't there. Days passed. Then weeks. Every sound outside made my heart jump. When he finally returned, it was late. The door opened softly. I was already on my feet before I realized it. He stood there, dusty, tired, alive. I didn't speak. I crossed the room and kissed him before he could say a word. Not teasing. Not gentle. Real. He exhaled against my mouth like he'd been holding his breath since the day he left. His arms wrapped around me instantly, crushing me to his chest. I told you, he murmured. I came back. I rested my forehead against his. You don't get to scare me like that. He kissed me again, slower this time, grounding. I'll always come home. I believed him. Because if love was a battlefield, this was the one he would never retreat from. Chapter 10, where he always returns. After war, Cale didn't come back dangerous. He came back quiet. The fire was still there, I could see it when he moved, when his eyes sharpened at unfamiliar sounds, but with me, he softened like a man finally allowed to rest. He didn't let go of me all night. Not once. Even in sleep, his arm stayed firm around my waist, his body pressed close like he was afraid distance itself might steal me away. In the morning, I shifted carefully. Don't, he murmured, half asleep. I smiled. You're home. I know, he said, tightening his hold. That's why I'm staying. I turned to face him. His eyes opened slowly, still heavy with exhaustion, but focused immediately on me. Always me. You survived, I said. He reached up and brushed his thumb over my cheek. So did you. I leaned in and kissed him, soft, unhurried, full of relief rather than hunger. He kissed me back the same way, lingering like he had nowhere else to be. When we pulled apart, I teased, "You're clingier than before." He didn't deny it. I learned something. Oh. He kissed my forehead. My nose. My lips again. I don't like being away from you. That honesty caught me off guard. You're terrible, I said quietly. He smiled. You married me anyway. Later, as I moved around the house, he followed, no shame, no restraint. Leaning against door frames, standing too close, hands always finding my waist or my wrist. You're hovering, I said. I'm grounding myself, he replied. I laughed. He kissed me mid-laugh, stealing the sound right from my mouth. At night, we sat together in silence, his head resting on my shoulder, fingers lazily intertwined with mine. This, he said quietly, is better than victory. I didn't answer. I kissed him instead. Slow. Certain. Forever. Because war could call him away again. But this was where he would always return. Chapter 11, The Habit of Us. Cale became a habit. Not a sudden craving. Not something loud or dramatic. Something constant. He learned my routines faster than I realized. When I woke up, how I liked my tea, which silence meant leave me alone and which meant stay. Most of the time, he chose to stay. I was brushing my hair when I felt him behind me, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching like I was something familiar and precious. You're staring again, I said. I'm appreciating, he replied. I met his eyes in the mirror. You're shameless. Yes, he agreed, stepping closer. He slipped his hands around my waist easily, chin resting on my shoulder. This wasn't claiming. This was comfort. Like muscle memory. You're distracting, I muttered. Good. He pressed a kiss just behind my ear, quick, casual, practiced. The kind of kiss you give without thinking. That scared me more than the intense ones ever did. You do this a lot now, I said quietly. He hummed. You haven't stopped me. Later, we sat together on the couch, legs tangled, his head resting on my chest. He wasn't asleep. He just liked being there. You know, I said, fingers running through his hair, you're attached. He didn't even open his eyes. I warned you. I smiled despite myself. He shifted slightly and kissed my collarbone, lazy, familiar. Not asking for anything. Just reminding me he was there. I could tease you right now, I said. You always do, he replied. I tilted his chin up and kissed him once, short and deliberate, then pulled back immediately. He opened his eyes slowly, amused. Cruel. You like it? I love it, he corrected, pulling me down for another kiss, longer this time but still gentle. When he let me go, he rested his forehead against mine. This, he murmured, is my favorite part of living. My chest tightened. I didn't say anything. I kissed him instead, slow, certain, affectionate. The kind of kiss that said you're not going anywhere. Later that night, half asleep, he whispered, if I forget who I am someday, remind me this is where I belong. I wrapped my arms around him. I don't think you'll ever forget, I said softly. Because some loves don't need passion to survive. They survive on habit. And Cale Veyron had made me his favorite one. Chapter 12, The Fear He Never Says Out Loud. Cale woke up before I did. I knew because his arm was tighter than usual, his body tense like he'd been holding a thought too long. You awake? I murmured. So are you, he replied. I shifted to face him. His eyes were already on me, sharp, searching, like he was checking if I was real. You look like you're about to disappear, I said lightly. His jaw tightened. I had a dream. I waited. You weren't there, he continued. The house was empty. Everything was the same, except you. For a man who had faced death countless times, this was the fear that undid him. I reached up and cupped his face. I'm here. I know, he said. That's why it scares me. He pulled me closer, forehead pressing against mine. No teasing. No confidence. Just honesty. I can survive war, he said quietly. I don't know if I can survive losing you. My chest tightened. You won't, I said firmly. Not like that. He studied my face like he was memorizing it again, then leaned in and kissed me. Not claiming. Not hungry. A promise. Slow. Steady. Intentional. When he pulled back, his voice was low. If something happens to me. I cut him off with another kiss, sharper this time. Don't. He exhaled, surrendering, arms wrapping around me fully. His grip wasn't possessive, it was anchoring. Later, we sat together by the window, watching the world move like it always did, unaware of how close fear had come. Stay with me, he said softly. I already am. He rested his head on my shoulder, fingers intertwining with mine like it was instinct now. And for the first time, the man who feared nothing allowed himself to be afraid. Not of war. But of a life without us. Chapter 13, The Choice He Makes. The past didn't stay buried. It never does. The message arrived at night, quiet, coded, unmistakable. Cale read it once, then folded the paper slowly, carefully, like every movement mattered. I watched him. It's bad. Yes. War. No, he said. Worse. He didn't explain immediately. He came closer instead, hands settling on my waist out of habit, then stopping, like he realized what he was doing. They want me back, he said finally. One last time. I felt it then, the shift. The dangerous calm sliding back into place. The untouchable soldier waking up. You're not theirs anymore, I said. His eyes softened, but only for a second. I know. That's why it's dangerous. Silence stretched between us. This ends with you hurt, I said quietly. He cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. That's why I have to finish it. I grabbed his wrist. You don't get to decide alone. He leaned down and kissed me. Not soft. Not teasing. Desperate. A kiss that tasted like fear and certainty tangled together. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. I'm choosing you, he said. This is how. Anger flared. That's a terrible way to show it. He smiled faintly. You married a terrible man. I swallowed. Come back. I always do, he said, but this time, his voice wasn't as sure. At the door, he stopped. Turned back. Looked at me like he was carving my face into memory. If I'm late, he said, don't wait at the window. I stepped forward and kissed him again, slow, deliberate, grounding. I'll wait wherever I want, I said. You'll find me. Something fierce and unbreakable settled in his eyes. He left. The night stretched too long. Every sound felt sharp. Every shadow felt wrong. Then, footsteps. The door opened. Cale stood there, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve, eyes locked on me like I was the only thing keeping him upright. I crossed the room and kissed him before he could speak. This time, it wasn't fear. It was relief. I told you, he murmured against my lips. I came back. I held him tighter. Don't ever do that again. He rested his forehead against mine, exhausted. I won't. There's nothing left chasing me now. For the first time, I believed him. Because whatever ghosts had followed him. He had finally chosen home over war. Chapter 14, what he chooses to keep. After that night, things changed. Not loudly. Not all at once. But the tension that had always lived just under Cale's skin finally loosened. The sharp edges dulled. The man who had always been ready to leave, stayed. He stopped checking exits as often. Stopped sleeping with one eye open. Stopped pretending he belonged anywhere else. One evening, we walked through the city together. No uniforms. No shadows. Just us. People still noticed him. They always would. Power didn't disappear just because it was at rest. But this time, he didn't keep distance. His hand stayed in mine. You're not hiding anymore, I said. He glanced at me. I'm tired of pretending you're not my center. That was new. Later, at home, he leaned against the kitchen counter while I moved around him, watching with quiet focus. When I passed too close, he caught my wrist and pulled me in. Not possessive. Not desperate. Certain. I made a choice, he said. I met his gaze. You already did. He shook his head. No. Before, I chose to survive. Now I choose to live. He leaned down and kissed me, slow, unhurried, filled with intention. The kind of kiss that didn't take, didn't test, didn't tease. It stayed. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. Chapter 15, Home, finally. Home stopped feeling temporary. It wasn't just a place anymore, it was a decision Cale made every morning when he stayed, every night when he pulled me close, every moment he chose quiet over chaos. The dangerous soldier faded into memory. Not gone. Just resting. One evening, the house was filled with soft light and familiar silence. Cale sat beside me, shoulder pressed into mine, legs stretched out comfortably. None running. I smiled softly. Good. I don't chase. That night, we lay together in silence, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm, grounding himself in the simple fact of being here. I don't need war, he said quietly. I don't need violence. What do you need? I asked. He turned and kissed my knuckles, eyes steady. This. And for the first time, the man who had been feared by the world allowed himself to be seen. Not as a weapon. Not as a survivor. But as someone who had chosen love and planned to keep it. Chapter 15, Home, finally. Home stopped feeling temporary. It wasn't just a place anymore, it was a decision Cale made every morning when he stayed, every night when he pulled me close, every moment he chose quiet over chaos. the dangerous soldier faded into memory. Not gone. Just resting. One evening, the house was filled with soft light and familiar silence. Cale sat beside me, shoulder pressed into mine, legs stretched out comfortably. No tension. No urgency. Just presence. "You're smiling," he said. "So are you," I replied. He leaned in and kissed me, slow, warm, unhurried. The kind of kiss that didn't need to steal or surprise. It belonged exactly where it landed. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "This is it," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "That's dramatic." He smiled softly. "I've fought enough wars to know when something is worth protecting." I rested my hand over his heart. "Steady. Calm. Alive. You're not dangerous anymore," I teased. He kissed my knuckles. "Only to anyone who tries to take this away." We stayed like that for a long time, touching without needing to speak, loving without needing to define it. Two people. One home. No explanations required. Later, as night settled, he pulled me closer, arm heavy around my waist, chin resting against my shoulder, clingy as always, unapologetic as ever. "You still take advantage," I murmured. He smiled against my skin. "You still let me." And that was enough. Not labels. Not rules. Not fear. Just love that chose to stay. Rainbow for the viewers. This story isn't about titles. It isn't about labels. It isn't about who is allowed to love whom. It's about choosing someone. About staying. About finding home in a person. The end. If this story made you feel something. If it reminded you that love doesn't need permission. Sparkles follow BL without labels. Because love is love. Always sparkle. Subscribe to support BL stories without labels. Red heart # like if you believe love is love. Repeat button. Share this story with someone understands.